what are they right now that are important for founders in terms of new technology?
I think AI wins hands down, but the point is, where are you positioning AI?
What are today's customers expecting from startups, in your opinion, whether it comes to speed, personalization, affordability, or anything else?
All of the above.
All of the above.
Yeah, there's always all of the above, but most importantly is reliability.
Which industries do you think are about to be shaken up or are going to need to be prepared with new startups coming in?
So the service industry is going to get disrupted substantially, that which you all know. The infrastructure industry is going to see a boom substantially. Mental well-being industry is going to see a boom substantially. Affordable healthcare is going to find its own way. Self-care is going to have a lot of impact.
Hello and welcome back to the Green Generation podcast. I am Shruti Seetharaman, your host for today, and I am joined by Mr. Prem Barthasarathy today. Also, what I want to ask you is how much does having, I think you sort of answered this, having a purpose story, but in terms of saying being socially impactful or being green, how much does this actually matter to investors today?
I think the answer is slightly different because the real answer is, am I investing in a company which is non-green? Am I investing in a company which is non-ESG or non-SDG? I think that's the whole mantra. Because whether it is ESG or SDGs, the companies today and the founders themselves are actually kind of looking at deep societal problems, which are actually catering to the ESGs and the SDGs of this world. I mean, for example, we don't invest, for example, in a tobacco company. We don't. That's part of our mandate.
Yeah.
It is self-infused, by the way. So it certainly matters. But the real conundrum comes in whether you are a pure play social impact fund vis-a-vis a responsible investment fund. A social impact fund, would not necessarily mean they are looking for investment returns. Right. So that's the traditional. It's more philanthropic money looking at deep impact, not necessarily IRR. But on the other hand, responsible investing is all about a fine balance in terms of finance as well as impact. We call it the financial impact and the developmental impact. So that's what we do. I mean, if I were to kind of give you a holistic view of where we stand for in terms of the development impact, I mean, over the last decade or so, we have been able to generate about 4,000 plus jobs. And through one of our portfolio companies, we've been able to place about 2.5 or 250,000 blue-collar workers. And as you did say earlier, we have about 30% plus women entrepreneurs. And to date, we have impacted through affordable healthcare close to about 40 million people across the globe. And we've offset about 30,000 tons of CO2 through our portfolio companies, moving potentially up to 700,000 in the next 5 years. So these are some of the metrics that we follow. So the answer is, it is of great impact. It is of great interest for us because at the end of the day, personally for me, that is what I'm leaving my children with. So
having a purposeful story focusing on sustainability is extremely important, which is why if you are watching this podcast, thank you very much. But I'm hoping that you're able to learn as much from this as much as I am. But also it's extremely important. Like I said, I think today is a world where we're full of entrepreneurs. We have tips to share with you. And for you to also understand how important it is to be sustainable, to have a purposeful story. So I'm going to move on to in terms of technology and disruption. So in terms of new technologies that are creating opportunities for founders, what are they right now that are important for founders in terms of new technology?
I think AI wins hands down, but the point is, where are you positioning AI? And I have been recently talking to my team, and for us to understand this, we need to go back in history about 15 years, 15 years rather, when iPhone came into picture, right? When iPhone came into picture, there were a lot of apps. There was a proliferation of apps. It's as simple as even an app which can remove a photo background edit, a photo background.
Right.
So that app would have garnered then, they would have chosen $1 per person per year. That's about $100,000, and which means they were probably valued at $5 million. But over a course of action, over the course of time, what happened was that got integrated into the greater part of basic feature requirements. And so what happens? So how many of us really know the number of apps that we have, or how many of us really go into an app store to download anything?
No.
So we don't. So the same is what is happening with AI. So what we are witnessing right now is the app layer.
Right.
So it's going to change. Okay. So I mean, I was asking somebody, they were building bots for agentic AI. We were doing this. I said, hang on. If you are actually building agentic AI, good, great. But then the gestational period of that is going to be limited in my personal view, because you're actually building an agentic AI on an existing platform like OpenAI or whatever it is, which means you're actually giving them data and you're actually acquiring customers for them at your cost and giving them all the intelligence. And once they have a critical mass, they're going to have a simple plug and play, which they can roll out to anybody, be it for medicine, be it for industry or whatsoever. So all of a sudden, you become oblivious. So that's what's going to happen. So the important thing is solving deep societal problems with AI. When I say deep societal problems, let me give an example. One of our portfolio companies is a company called Dweepy Technologies. Now, Dweepy is not the flamboyant looking of this world in terms of the construct of how flashy it looks. So India, as an example, is the fourth largest railway track across India, across the whole world, sorry. And you have about 7,300 plus railway stations. Now, these railway stations today are manually surveyed by people called putmen. Maybe you may have witnessed when you go to the train station, you have people with a sledgehammer walking along the corridor, actually testing the integrity of the railway tracks. Now imagine if the railway track, be it because of a simple bolt jaw joint movement or because of underlying stone movement, it's catastrophic. And so today what they do is basically they carry grease in their hands to walk along the length and a chalk. And then basically they go there. Let's say, for example, I have gone 2 kilometers down and I find an issue with one of the locks. I put a chalk mark and I also apply the grease on the track to tell me that this is the location until which I have come, and I have to run back to the command center to tell them there's a problem there. So imagine if a train goes in between. Chances of, it's scary, scary. Right now, this company, Dweepy, all they have done is using AI and integrated IoT and sensors. They're building a robo which goes on top of the tracks, and they're equipping these putmen with a handheld laptop with visual representation of what these issues are. So you walk the thing to the track, and then basically it automatically identifies the issues, gives the view through a tile mechanism to the guy who will not be equipped, saying, this is the issue, do you think that way? Have geo-positioning. And that's it. Now, globally, there are only 6 companies doing that.
Really?
Yeah, 6 or 8. And in India, there are only 2. So that's AI. So the intersection between a software and a hardware and an AI component with a traditional hardware to solve deep societal problems, that's where the opportunity is.
So would it be safe to say that AI is more of a tool that helps to create new business ideas, or do you see it still as a mechanism or something that can replace certain startup jobs?
I will answer the question slightly in a very layman term. AI to me is refrigeration.
Okay.
The people who actually benefited most from refrigeration are the cool drinks manufacturers. So you build products on top.
Okay, fair enough. And what are today's customers expecting from startups, in your opinion, whether it comes to speed, personalization, affordability, or anything else?
All of the above.
All of the above.
Yeah, there's always all of the above, but most importantly is reliability.
Of course. course.
And especially in a B2B business, it's reliability, timeliness, and most importantly, scalability. Right. So I may take my startup to, let's say, for example, one of the greatest conglomerates in the world, in India or across the world. But if they're not able to scale after they have proven their technology, that's a big problem for the industry.
Absolutely. Okay. And what kind of mindset do you think founders should have to survive and thrive in this ever-evolving, fast-changing sort of space?
The most important thing that a founder needs to understand is that there's a difference between a founder and an entrepreneur. Prem Barthasarathy 10 years ago was a founder. Prem Barthasarathy 5 years ago was still a founder. Prem Barthasarathy pre-COVID was a founder. Prem Barthasarathy post-COVID is an entrepreneur. You have to weather the storm.
And what would you, since you said that, what would you think is the core difference that's changed between you being a founder and
because you have to take decisions when the entire world in front of you is hazy and stick with it.
Okay, interesting. So the work doesn't stop. It never stops. Even if you're a founder, you have to still keep evolving, keep changing, keep.
Yeah. So basically, when you understand, okay, let's put it this way, right? Let's say I graduate out of college today, and I go and found a company. My title says founder. Like, what do I know?
Right.
I don't.
Yeah.
So I have to run the business. I have to understand cash flows. I have to understand HR. I have to understand customer. A lot of permutations and combination of all the things that can possibly go wrong, right? So these days when I wake up and if my phone doesn't ring, I have to pinch myself as to why is the phone ringing. Because as an entrepreneur, you are used to kind of handling problems day in, day out.
Yeah.
And most importantly, taking decisions day in, day out. Founders is, a title doesn't mean anything.
Right.
It's different.
I mean, it's practically on the job is what you learn.
Exactly.
Fair enough. I think that's also something, as someone who is now running a media production company and who's just started working with it, I've realized that there's so much more for me to get involved in and learn and understand before I can say I safely know the business as a whole, right? So yeah, I think I don't know it entirely yet. I think I'm too new to the game to answer the question, but I think I sort of agree with you.
Because you have the unknowns hitting you from every corner, which you have not even thought about. I mean, who thought about COVID, for example?
Absolutely.
Right. So
I mean, I guess they're interesting challenges.
Yeah.
To put it in the least. Okay, and now to look at the future outlook, which industries do you think are about to be shaken up or are going to need to be prepared with new startups coming in?
So again, it boils down to, so the service industry is going to get disrupted substantially, that which you all know. The infrastructure industry is going to see a boom substantially. Mental well-being industry is going to see a boom substantially. Affordable healthcare is going to find its own way. Self-care is going to have a lot of impact as well. And needless to say, the overall recruitment and jobs and HR industry is going to change because Gen Zs don't want to work just one job.
Yeah.
They want to have multiple jobs in a single day. So a lot of changes are expected on that. And what you will find is a lot of startups trying to change the status quo. Okay.
So all of these are, or if you're involved in any of these industries, you now know to be mindful, to be alert, to be aware in a good way. I think in a good way, it's good to be prepared, alert, and aware.
I mean, I'll give you an example, right? I mean, previously I used to hire lawyers, and I'm fairly conversant with the legal language now. I mean, to draft my NDAs and so on and so forth. But now that I have seen enough number of NDAs, I don't go to my lawyer anymore. To draft NDAs, and if I have two forms of NDAs, one from us and one from the counterparty, I just put it on ChatGPT and say, hey, can just mirror both of them and say, okay, put it, reconcile, and it works. And then I check the language, and whichever language I don't like, because ChatGPT is not that great so far, I make the amends. So job done.
Interesting. Okay, and lastly, if you had to guess what will be the most common startup business model 5 years from now, what do you think it would be?
OpEx-based model, because a lot of so as a service model, subscription as a service model is what it is. But again, it boils down to globally, startups which, in my personal view, startups which are yielding annuity businesses and cash flow positive businesses, those are the ones which will attract a lot more capital.
Okay, interesting. So I hope all of you enjoyed listening to this conversation. I truly enjoyed being in this setup. And just one important thing to remember is that startups and how they're being built is evolving so fast and so quickly that I think conversations like these are so important to understand. The more we're able to, like you said, adapt and adopt, the more likely you are to survive. And also, the more likely you are able to incorporate sustainable practices that might be required for your company. So, if you did enjoy watching this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.